Right, well right now CFATS is waiting to be renewed. I believe it's HR Bill 908, and actually 2 days ago on the 16th it was actually tabled because they were debating another bill. However, the main purpose of this is to actually renew the bill exactly as it is through fiscal year 2017 for another 7 years. And that's really supported by the industry because it doesn't have the IST provision. The inherently safer technology provision is one that many associations, the chemical associations, the water associations, really dislike that IST provision because of how it's worded and the onus that it does put on top of those suppliers and providers to do that examination for inherently safer technologies.
Gotcha. Where are we at in terms of the site analysis and those elements for the tier 1s, the tier 2s?
Sure. Right now, the inspectors are getting into the site, the tier 2 facilities. The tier 1s have been predominantly inspected. There's 2 approved SSPs waiting to be signed off and approved on. What's happening right now in the industry is that because when CFATS started, there's a lot of organizations that have many facilities that are tiered, and there's a lot of the SSP that will carry over to all divisions of that particular facility or that particular organization. What's really working now is to get all of them the same, from document retention policies to how they hire and fire employees and what they retain. But what that's caused is they'll do a pre-authorization visit, and in that visit they basically gather that information, they being DHS inspectors, gather that information, make sure it's all the same, point out areas that need to be brought up, and then they'll come out and do their actual authorization inspection. What's happened is, with the risk-based performance standards being not a very clear threshold to success in regards to a clearly identified fence or mechanism to be used, it's left to the individual owner to decide what is going to be that measure. There is a little give and take between the DHS inspectors and the facilities. While the DHS inspectors cannot give, yes, you need this particular and actually specify a device or a mechanism, it's opened up an area where the facility owners are not really guessing, but kind of playing, trying to just find out what that point is, because they have a business to run. They need to maintain that bottom line, and they want to make sure they meet those goals and keep those chemicals safe, but they want to make sure they're also minding their bottom line as well.
Is that creating a real pain point for the petrochem community, for their end users?
Well, from the industry as a whole, with not having a clear indication of what success is, what it does is it opens it up for a lot of interpretation by individuals. So back to the previous point, they're really not playing a game, but they're trying to find out what that inspector wants, because that inspector can't say. So what it's created inadvertently is a facility will receive notice that they need more barriers to entry. They will then put a couple more barriers to entry. Through that process, 30 days of evaluation, it comes back, you need more barriers to entry, and you have 60 days to respond. 60 days go by, they add a couple more. 30 days after they submit, we need more barriers to entry. And what it's created is kind of a bureaucracy of paperwork going back and forth, where the business is, hey, I want to make sure I pass these measures, but I want to make sure I'm minding my bottom line. And then DHS saying, well, I don't want to tell you exactly what to do, I want you to do it. So it's, you tell me what you want, well, I can't tell you, and you have a little bit of a give and take that's trying to make sure that they meet those regulations while tending that bottom line as well.
And yet, even with that confusion of that hidden bar, if you will, it still is a positive. The CFATS is a positive thing for our industry. It
is a positive thing. Anytime government gets involved with a regulation, there is a cost to the consumer. It is an unintended byproduct. Just because these companies now have, in some cases, hire additional employees, incorporate technology, change the way they're doing business, there's unintended costs with that. But the industry is very supportive of CFATS. We, as a consultant for Burns McDonnell, we're very think the best of CFATS because it's securing the chemicals. No one wants to have their name attached to a chemical theft that hurts the American public or hurts anybody. So these measures going forward, helping secure those assets in a very standardized way, and looking at them and measuring and holding those folks accountable to make sure they're done, it's a great plan. It just really needs to continue the way it is for 7 years, because there's still a lot of things that need to be worked out and fine-tuned, as it's still a relatively new regulation. Any changes at this point could really be problematic for the industry. That's, frankly, is very heavily regulated from the DOT, from PHMSA, to MITSA, to CFATS. They do have to maintain a lot of regulation.
I know there's a discussion of whether CFATS would start to include water treatment plants in some of the water industry. What are your indications you're hearing? Will that be taken over under CFATS, or will it remain separate?
Well, in the negotiation of HR Bill, let me double check my name here to make sure I say it properly. Yes, in the negotiations of HR Bill 908, Senate Democrats wanted to include water and wastewater, and Republicans wanted to keep it as is. Once again, as we're working through the CFATS program to make sure it's applied properly. Originally, they were given an exclusion of the 5 exclusions. 2 included water and wastewater facilities. Right now, in the last Senate hearing I attended in D.C. approximately 2 months ago, Under Secretary De Beers, in no uncertain terms, said we want CFATS to include water, wastewater, as well as ports, and mainly because a lot of the higher tiered chemicals are used by many, not all, but many water and wastewater treatment facilities. And there really is that drive to regulate them. It appears right now that what we're seeing is that the EPA is really making an attempt to regulate them because the EPA has governed water and wastewater for so long. It's really a good fit, in my opinion, because EPA really understands the nuances of water and wastewater, beyond that of the chemical, how it's used in the process, how often it's brought in, and those nuances that CFATS doesn't necessarily cover to the degree that EPA would really have that knowledge of.